Tea and horses, two simple commodities, yet together they shaped the fate of an empire. Picture this: vast armies riding across China's northern borders, their strength resting on one resource. But that resource wasn't weaponry. It was the strong, resilient war horses bred in the highlands of Tibet. These horses carried soldiers into battle, protecting China's borders from invaders. But Tibet didn't give these horses away. They traded them for something they needed even more: tea. Imagine traders embarking on a journey so dangerous that each step could mean life or death. These caravans, loaded with bricks of tea, wound their way through treacherous mountain passes, deep valleys and frozen plateaus. For months on end, they braved snowstorms, bandits and exhaustion, but turning back was not an option. The Tea Horse Road was more than a trade route. It was a lifeline connecting China's military might with Tibet's cultural survival. But why tea? And why horses? To understand the depth of this connection, we must dive into a story of strategic brilliance, where culture and necessity merged to create one of the most dangerous and transformative trade routes in the ancient world. The road, spanning over 4,000 kilometers, twisted through some of the most perilous landscapes imaginable, from the towering Hengduan Mountains to the snow-covered Tibetan plateau. Yet, despite the dangers, traders risked everything because the stakes were that high. Without the horses, China's armies would have faltered. Without the tea, Tibet would have been deprived of a resource that sustained both their body and spirit. This was more than a trade route. It was a thread that tied two worlds together. It may seem strange. Why would the mighty Chinese empire, with all its wealth and resources, rely on Tibetan horses? And why was tea, that simple leaf, so critical to Tibet's survival? The answer lies not in luxury, but in necessity. Tea to the Tibetans was more than a drink. It was sustenance. In the harsh, cold environment of the Tibetan plateau, where food was scarce and energy was needed to survive the cold, butter tea became a lifeline, a warm drink that provided energy, nutrients, and comfort. And in Tibet, tea wasn't just a drink. It became woven into their religious practices, a symbol of hospitality and spirituality. Meanwhile, in China, horses were the key to dominance. Chinese cavalry units relied on sturdy Tibetan horses for military campaigns, horses that were bred to survive in rough, mountainous terrain. Without these horses, China's armies would have struggled to defend their borders, especially against the nomadic tribes that constantly threatened the empire's stability. The Song dynasty, in particular, was desperate for Tibetan horses, which were considered superior in strength and endurance. At one point, the tea trade became so vital that it was regulated by the Chinese government. Tea wasn't just a drink. It became a state-controlled resource. Tea plantations expanded to meet the increasing demand, as brick after brick of tea was traded for the horses that would maintain China's military supremacy. The value of tea skyrocketed, not as a luxury for the elite, but as the currency that kept the empire safe. This exchange was not just about goods, it was about power, how two societies so different found a way to survive by trading what they needed most. And in the midst of this exchange, the Tea Horse Road became more than a trade route. It became a bridge, linking cultures, ideas, and people across some of the most remote landscapes in the world. The Tea Horse Road was no simple trade route. It was a trial of endurance, where traders risked their lives at every turn. Spanning over 4,000 kilometers of rugged mountains, deep gorges, and unforgiving weather, this was a path only the brave dared to walk. Every step was a battle against nature, and every journey meant facing death. But for these traders, the stakes couldn't have been higher, because without them, the lifeblood of two empires would cease to flow. Stretching through the Hengduan Mountains and across the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, the Tea Horse Road passed through some of the most dangerous landscapes on Earth. Traders faced steep cliffs where one misstep could send them plunging into the ravine below. The trails were narrow and unstable, often cut into the mountainside with sheer drops of hundreds of meters. And then there were the rivers, wide, powerful, and swift. Crossing these rivers meant using rickety rope bridges suspended high above the rushing water. For many traders, these crossings were the most terrifying part of the journey. One famous section of the road, known as the Tiger Leaping Gorge, claimed the lives of countless traders. Legend has it that some caravans, loaded with tea and horses, were lost forever to the river below. And the snowstorms? How many traders froze to death in the bitter cold, their bodies found only when the spring thaw arrived. But the most dangerous stretch of the road wasn't even the terrain. It was the threat of bandits. But despite the perils of the journey, the traders pressed on. They had no choice. And as we'll see, the rewards of surviving the Tea Horse Road were immense for those who made it. The Tea Horse Road wasn't just a highway for goods, it was a bridge between two worlds. Along this route, ideas, traditions and beliefs flowed as freely as the tea and horses. This was more than trade. It was a cultural exchange that transformed both China and Tibet, leaving a legacy that still echoes today. Alongside the flow of tea and horses came something far more powerful: ideas. Tibetan monks traveled the Tea Horse Road, bringing with them religious texts, spreading Buddhism from Tibet into China and influencing spiritual life for centuries. These monks didn't just carry goods. They carried wisdom, and the road became a pathway for the exchange of beliefs, leading to the spread of Tibetan Buddhism deep into Chinese culture. But it wasn't just about tea and horses. The Tea Horse Road became a vital artery for salt, silk, medicinal herbs and other goods. Traders brought Chinese silk into Tibet, while Tibetan herbs, many of which were used for healing and spiritual rituals, flowed into China. This road transformed local economies, turning small mountain towns into bustling trade hubs, where merchants from as far away as Nepal and India mingled with Chinese and Tibetan traders. Take the town of Lijiang, for example, located in the foothills of the Hengduan Mountains. Once a small, quiet village, Lijiang grew into a thriving market town thanks to the wealth that flowed along the Tea Horse Road. Tibetan traders would bring their horses into Lijiang, exchanging them for Chinese silk and tea. The town became known for its colorful markets, where silk weavers and artisans showcased their goods. And even today, Lijiang remains a testament to the economic power of the road. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, its narrow streets and traditional buildings still tell the story of an ancient trade network that brought wealth and prosperity to the region. And then there was tea itself. In Tibet, tea wasn't just a drink. It was a ritual, a sign of hospitality and a spiritual practice. Tibetan butter tea, made with yak butter and salt, became a symbol of warmth and community. In monasteries, tea was offered to monks during religious ceremonies, while families in remote mountain villages would gather around a fire, sharing tea as they discussed their day. In many ways, tea became the glue that held Tibetan society together, a tradition that still endures today. The Tea Horse Road wasn't just a commercial route, it was a cultural lifeline that tied Tibet and China together in ways that went far beyond the exchange of goods. It carried not only silk and tea, but also stories, traditions, and beliefs. In this way, the road became a symbol of interconnectivity, showing that trade can shape more than just economies. It can shape entire cultures. As the centuries passed, the world began to change. New roads were built, new technologies emerged, and the demand for Tibetan horses faded. The Tea Horse Road, once a vital artery of trade and culture, gradually fell silent. But even though the caravans no longer traverse these perilous mountain paths, the legacy of the Tea Horse Road endures in the cultures, traditions, and landscapes it left behind. The decline of the Tea Horse Road didn't happen overnight. It was a slow unraveling as modern transportation and new trade routes made the ancient pathways obsolete. With the construction of the Sichuan-Tibet Highway in the mid-20th century, goods could now move faster, and the perilous journey across the mountains was no longer necessary. Horses, once critical for military campaigns, were replaced by modern warfare technologies, and the demand for Tibetan war horses diminished. But the end of the Tea Horse Road didn't mean the end of its cultural impact. The traditions, rituals, and festivals that grew out of this trade route still survive today. In the markets of Lijiang and Shangri-La, you can still see the legacy of the Tea Horse Road in the architecture, the handicrafts, and the tea ceremonies that have been passed down through generations. For these communities, the road may have fallen silent, but its spirit lives on. Today, much of the ancient Tea Horse Road has been preserved as a cultural and historical landmark. UNESCO World Heritage Sites like Lijiang and Shangri-La attract visitors from all over the world, curious to walk the paths that once carried tea, horses and ideas between two great empires. The legacy of the road is not just in the goods that were traded, it's in the stories, the art and the architecture that still stand as monuments to the cultures that grew from this trade. In fact, today, tourism along the old Tea-Horse Road has become a major industry, with travelers eager to retrace the footsteps of ancient traders. Towns like Lijiang and Shangri-La, once bustling trade hubs, now thrive as cultural tourism destinations. Visitors come to experience the traditions of Tibetan tea culture, explore the ancient temples and walk the paths that connected empires. In this way, the road has taken on a new life, not as a trade route, but as a bridge between past and present. Many modern travelers describe their journeys along the Tea-Horse Road as more than just a tourist adventure. It's a connection to the past. One traveler recalls walking the narrow mountain paths and imagining the traders who once risked their lives for the tea bricks and horses they carried. Local inhabitants in places like Shangri-La often speak of their deep connection to the land and their pride in keeping the traditions of the Tea-Horse Road alive. The Tea-Horse Road may no longer be the bustling trade route it once was, but its legacy continues to shape the lives and cultures of the people who live along its ancient path. Today, it stands as a testament to the power of connection between cultures, between empires, and between past and present. It reminds us that even the most remote roads can carry with them the seeds of transformation. In a world that seems ever more connected by technology and infrastructure, the story of the Tea-Horse Road serves as a reminder that some of the most powerful connections are forged not by machines, but by people. By the traders who walked for months, risking their lives, and by the monks who carried wisdom and faith between empires. And though the road may have fallen silent, the ideas, beliefs and traditions it carried continue to echo today.